Hey guys, today we are making my homemade garlic bread. This is seriously going to be the best homemade garlic bread you can make. I have tried so many over the years, and this is by far the best that I've ever made. This is my own recipe, and this is, I say, a God-given recipe because truly it is. It is just absolutely amazing. So let's just get started. In a bowl here I have a half a cup of whole milk, and to that I'm going to add in 3 tablespoons of unsalted butter. I'm going to pop this in the microwave for about 45 seconds or so to a minute. The milk is going to get really nice and hot. The butter is going to start melting into it. While that is heating up, in another bowl here I have some all-purpose flour. I have 2 cups of all-purpose flour. I also have about a half a teaspoon of salt and a 1/4 cup of granulated sugar. We're going to go ahead and stir our dry ingredients together to get the sugar and the salt incorporated. So we've mostly mixed that in. I'm going to set that aside. Alright, so our milk is really nice and hot. At this point, our butter, as you can see, is starting to melt. I am not going to add my yeast to this at this point because it's a little bit too hot for my yeast and it might kill my yeast. So I have some vanilla extract. I'm going to add in about a teaspoon of vanilla. Yeah. And what I'm going to do now is just going to let this sit here for about a few minutes, 3 minutes or so, just to kind of cool down a little bit. You can take your butter as well and kind of turn it around on the next side so that it starts to get nice and soft all the way around. So, okay, so it's been a couple minutes. I let this sit here for a little bit so it wasn't too hot. I'm going to go ahead and add in some yeast. I am using a packet of yeast. This is a 1/4 ounce packet, 1/4 ounce packet, which is equal to 2 1/4 teaspoons. I will have that listed below for you. You can use instant yeast. You can use active dry, whichever one. This is actually, I'm just going to give this a little stir. This is actually instant yeast, but I still like to proof my yeast whether it's instant or not so that I know that my yeast is fresh and good. I'm going to give this about 5 minutes, let the yeast start to kind of activate. It's beautiful and foaming up beautifully. So what I'm going to do now is I have 2 large eggs here. I'm going to go ahead and in a separate bowl I'm going to crack it here and get the whites out. And we're going to separate our whites and our yolk. We're going to take our yolk and place it in with the milk. At this point, the milk is not too hot, so it's not going to cook our yolk or anything. Separate that. So we've added in our 2 egg yolks. Set our whites aside because we will be using that in a little bit. I have my flour here. I'm going to make a little well in the center of my bowl. I'm going to add in my beautiful yeast, butter, and egg yolks. And in the center I'm going to start going in a circular motion, kind of breaking up that egg yolk a little bit, and then slowly incorporating the flour around it. Once I have it mostly incorporated like this, I'm going to plop this onto my counter. Make sure and try and get all of the sides and bottom off of your bowl. The flour, scrape your spoon or whatever it is you're using. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring in my dough and all of the flour in on itself like that. So we have this nice, and I'm kind of just folding it over into itself to incorporate all of the flour. And this is such a simple recipe. And it is such a blessing. It is a God-given recipe. It is just perfection. It's easy, it's simple, it's delicious. Just can't say enough good things about it. Okay. Now that we have our little... So I'm going to take my hand and push out, bring the dough back in. I'm going to turn, push out, and I'm just going to continue doing that for about 5 minutes. for about 5 minutes, just pushing out on it, turning it, and so on and so forth. So I'm gonna do this, and I'll see you guys back in about 5 minutes. You don't want to press too hard on this because it can get stuck on your countertop and you may feel that you need a little extra flour, but you really shouldn't. Already really nice and smooth, but I'm going to continue this for another few minutes or so. It's been about 5 minutes. It's nice and smooth. It's come together. Now, if you have the time and you can go for 8 minutes or so, I highly recommend it, but 5 minutes will do. I'm just going to take it and form it into a ball by gently pulling on the sides and bringing it over and pinching the bottom so you have a nice little ball. So in a little bowl here, I have some non-stick cooking spray, and I'm going to go ahead and just spray the bottom and the sides. Place my dough ball in, flop it around so all sides get coated. I'm going to cover this up with some cling wrap. If you don't have non-stick cooking spray, just go ahead and use a little bit of melted. You can brush a little bit of vegetable oil, you can brush a little bit of melted butter. Just something to help it not stick to your bowl. I'm using some plastic wrap or cling wrap to cover this up, and then I'm just going to cover this up with a towel. You want to set this in a warm area till it doubles or even triples in size. It's going to take about 45 minutes to an hour or so, depending on where you live. It's pretty warm today, so I'm pretty sure it's not going to take that long, but it's not really in a big bowl, so I know that this is going to rise above this bowl, and that's great. That's what I'm looking for. Again, double or triple inside. Back, and it's been a couple hours. I kind of just let this go and let it do its thing while I was doing my thing around the house, whatever I had to do. And as you can see, I actually wanted it to rise above my bowl because, again, this is a small bowl, so I did want it to kind of triple in size. Whatever size the bowl you're using, you just want to triple in size. And this is also why I like using the plastic wrap to cover it as a first layer, because it doesn't stick and it's just this beautiful, smooth, perfect dough. Thanks.
Hello.
Hi.
No.
Well,
What is that?
that is bread. We're making some bread.
Red?
Yeah.
Oh, that.
Yeah, that. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to lightly spray my counter, just this small area with a little bit of non-stick cooking spray, just so nothing sticks. You can use a cutting board for this if you don't want to spray your counters. And I'm just going to go ahead and gently plop my dough over. I'm just going to cut this in half. I'm not deflating my dough or anything. I'm just cutting it in half. I'm going to set this aside. And I'm going to take this piece, this half here, and just form it into a log. Stretch it out. We're going to cut this into about 2 inches. About 2 inches is fine. So I'm going to take one of my pieces here, and I've also sprayed my countertop to help me kind of just roll it into a log. You don't want it too thick because you do want the outside to be a little bit on the crunchy side and the inside to be a little bit soft. So I like to go about 1 inch in thickness. Of my pieces, and I'm rolling it out until it's about 1 inch in thickness. I don't want it too thick. I'm just gonna go ahead and get my other half here and kind of form it into a log. A baking tray here that I've lined with parchment. If you don't have parchment paper, just spray a little bit of non-stick cooking spray. If you don't have non-stick cooking spray, just brush a little bit of vegetable oil or something like that, just to help it from sticking. You want these to be about 1 inch apart from each other, so if you need to use 2 baking trays, go ahead. Cling wrap. plastic wrap we used earlier. Don't discard of that. So I'm going to take that and lightly cover and gently cover my my breadsticks. Again, just use a towel. I could probably use a bigger towel, can't I? Let me get a bigger towel. So we're gonna let this double in size again. It's gonna take about 30 minutes this time in a warm area. I like to use my microwave with the microwave off. That way, because it's over the stove and you can start to preheat your oven at this point to 350 degrees. So that heat that's coming out kind of warms up the microwave, which makes this a perfect place for my rolls to rest in or my breadsticks to rest in. So it has been about 30 minutes or so, maybe a little bit longer. I placed this in a warm area till it's doubled in size. It got a little bit more doubled in size, but that's okay. Remove the towel, remove the plastic wrap, and it should come off nice and easy. Now what I have in this bowl here is the egg whites that we separated earlier from the egg yolks. We used the egg yolks in the dough, and now we're gonna use the egg whites. Alright, so I've added in a tablespoon of water, and I'm just gonna mix this until we combine the water and the egg whites, and I'm going to gently brush them all over the top and a little bit around the sides as well of our breadsticks. Now when you're doing this as well, you don't want to be too heavy on the egg wash. You just want just a little bit just to glisten the top. These are going to bake at 350, about 20 to 25 minutes until they're nice and golden brown. Again, we want them to have a nice crispy outside, so I'm going to pop this in the oven now. I will show you guys what they look like when we're out, and we're actually going to go ahead and make our topping for our garlic breadsticks. Alright, to make our topping for this, super simple, but it's perfection. I have some melted butter in here. You can use any kind of butter that you want, regular. I'm going with 1.5 teaspoons of garlic powder and mix that in. And to that, I'm going to add in some dried oregano. I'm just going in with about 1/4 teaspoon or so of dried oregano. I don't want too much. You can add more if you want, but I personally don't want too much of it because it kind of gives it a really earthy flavor. So I just like about 1/4 teaspoon. And some grated Parmesan cheese. Now these are not cheesy garlic sticks, but this is so important in this recipe. This is why I say it's a God-given recipe. This just makes it like salty, and it brings out that garlic flavor. The parm. So that's 5 teaspoons of the grated parm. Mix that in. And you want these to bake for about 20 to 25 minutes at 350 after they have come out the oven. You're just going to go ahead and brush them with that butter, parm, and garlic. And get all the sides, get all the centers and the corners and everywhere. And what we're going to do is when they're still warm, but we can handle them, we're going to flip them over and brush the back of it as well. We want it all to be coated in it, and these are super soft and fluffy on the inside. Make sure and get some of that butter all in there as well. Soft on the inside, a little bit of crunch on the outside. Amazing flavor with that garlic and that parm, and it is perfection. I hope that you guys enjoyed this recipe. Sorry it's a little bit longer than usual, but thank you guys for watching. I'll see you guys next time. Bye bye.